Welcome to the Better Business Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Zellin. Join me week after week as I interview high-level entrepreneurs on their journey to success, both in business and personal development. Each week presents new stories to learn from and new ideas on how to run a better business. Stay updated with all the guests we'll have by subscribing to this podcast. Welcome to Better Business with Austin Zellin. I'm so excited for today's guest. We have Mr. Kent Yoshimura. You might know him from Neurogum, Neuromints. Now, I actually have kind of a funny story because years ago, and by the way, this is the Neuromints I'm talking about right now. Years ago, I was checking out at a cash register and I saw these mints. And I'm kind of a big fan of caffeine. I'm like, I got Red Bull in hand and hey, why don't I also try these caffeine mints or this caffeine gum so I can stay alert and maybe it works better than Red Bull. Let me give it a try. Guys, from the first piece, let me tell you, this was not good gum. It did not taste good at all. And we actually had a big old conversation with Ken about this. But let me tell you, there's always an opportunity to win back a customer because these things are now amazing. I don't know what they did to the formula, but it's great. So anyways, super excited to have you here, man. Thank you for joining me. And let's go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's love the space.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And now we're energized, so we're good to go.
We're hype.
So yeah, really the background is I was never really a business person to begin with. You know, I was always an athlete. I was training for the Olympics in judo. I was always fighting in Thailand since I was like, you know, in my teenage years. And before that, I started karate when I was 5. So martial arts was a big part of my life. Fitness was a big part of my life. My sister is also in the athletic space. And this is like over a decade ago now, but supplements just in general were not FDA compliant for the most part. You don't know where the sourcing came from. You have to swallow these horse pills, you know, half the time, and you don't know if it's working for you or not. So studying neuroscience in college, I began mixing my own supplements and using myself as a guinea pig. And eventually, you know, my co-founder is a chemist, but eventually finding a professional organization and a manufacturer to put research and development into making supplements that are way more accessible, which intrinsically exists within gum and mint format. And if you look at gum and mint in the marketplace right now, it's all like they don't do anything for you.
Yeah.
You know? So it seemed like a pretty easy thing to just fit into adding benefit to a traditional space.
Yeah. No, definitely. I love that approach because like you said, it's mostly like entertainment, or maybe if you have bad breath, you can have a mint gum and it's like, it freshens your breath. But at the end of the day, there's no real tangible benefit. Whereas you guys added that into the gum and into the mints. And I think that's amazing. I think that's such a great example of entrepreneurship. You didn't have to invent gum. You didn't have to invent mints. You just made them better. And so I love that. And so how did you start the company? Like where did you start? And then how did it progress into where you're at today?
Yeah, so Ryan and I were super good friends in college. He was captain of his cross country and track team actually at Arcadia, like one of the fastest kids in California in high school. Unfortunately, his sophomore year, he got in a really bad snowboarding accident that left him paraplegic. So he's handicapped from the waist down. And while I was training and mixing these supplements, I knew that he wanted to get back into some training of some sort as well. And so I was giving him these supplements that I was doing my own research on. Nootropics was really big during that time, you know, Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey. And those supplements that he was taking led him to this road of recovery to a certain degree, getting him to train with the Paralympic team. Like one of our biggest investors before this, our Series A was Apollo Ono, for example, and people we knew from the Olympics. And during a scuba diving trip, which is why we ended up doing a partnership with Patty, we realized that these supplements are good, the ingredients are good, and there's different ways that we can use the scientific method to create better for you products. But if we want it to be accessible to everyone, then we have to put it into a different form factor, which, like I said, you know, earlier, is intrinsic in gum and mints. So didn't know anything. Launched an Indiegogo campaign, and to our surprise, we are now COO and myself. We emailed every single publication that talked about nootropics, and the first person that wrote about us was Time Magazine.
Wow!
And immediately we hit we made $20,000 in the first day, and it just picked up It picked up on Reddit, our nootropics. Dr. Oz interviewed us like 2 months later. We ran out of inventory. And that was just kind of the catalyst to be like, okay, we have something. We have capital to pay for the inventory. Let's professionalize this thing.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. What a takeoff story, man. Like you created the product and then immediately got, in Time Magazine, Dr. Oz. Like, that's crazy.
Most grassroots thing, literally emailing from my personal email, every single publication manually, no automation.
Yeah. Wow. I got to try that strategy, man. Just email everybody who could possibly promote, my product. That's awesome, man. I love that. And that's like, that's the spirit of entrepreneurship, right? Like, and I love that story. It's just so like genuine and raw. And it's like, not even a business email.
Yeah. All it takes is one person though,
Yeah.
It's like Time writes about you, you go to the next person, and then like BuzzFeed wrote about us, and then like Wall Street Journal wrote about us. And,
and it's kind of like a snowball effect at that point.
Yeah.
It just keeps growing and growing. Cool. Yeah. So maybe somebody's watching this and they're like, hey, I've got an idea and I want it to take off like that. What are some things that they could possibly do to also like try to mimic that trajectory?
It's hard because I think, we're a much bigger company obviously now than we were then, but there's different trajectories to the business.
Yeah.
And there's this book called Crossing the Chasm, which I don't know if you've read or the readers know about, but there's always that first consumer demographic group that you always want to tap into. And for us, it was biohackers, nootropics users, and Silicon Valley people.
Yeah.
And they like attached onto this product so much because they were staying up all night coding. They wanted their smart drugs, but they didn't want to be taking modafinil or Adderall all the time. And from that initial group, we were able to cross the chasm to become a much more public product, which is now why during that point, I think we could have strategized it a little better, but at that point, we hire more talent. We hire people that could be like, hey, push it out into the mainstream, whether on larger platforms like Amazon, all the way to, we're in like 10,000 retail stores now. Yeah. So how do you prove out something, a minimum viable product?
Yeah.
And then cross the chasm, prove out that next phase, and then eventually become, a household name, which is what we're trying to enter into, right? That's the next chasm for us to cross.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I love that story for sure. And it's very, very true. Like what you're saying is you targeted specifically biohackers. You targeted specifically these people because you needed critical mass. You needed proof of concept for this product. And that opened the doors for that next phase of your business. And so, business happens in phases sometimes. And so sometimes we need to do that. If we have a product that's very specific, we need those people, those champions that can champion the product for us. And then we continue moving forward with it. So yeah, great insights there, man. So just in general, what's your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
Oh man. Well, initially when I first started, I was like, 4-hour work week, freedom. That is like so far from the truth. I probably work I don't know. It's not true. You're working all the time.
Yeah.
But the great thing about entrepreneurship is this lifestyle that I was already living just became part of my working life. And prior to that, I've never really had a W-2 until Neurogum. I was always in like the art space and the creative space. But for this to just become something that I know I could stay active and it fits the ethos of the company. I know I could stay creative and it fits the ethos of the company. Like that is such a luxury to have. And I don't know, for me, there's obviously the pursuit of capital, which all entrepreneur, as a business owner, you pursue money. But for freedom and freedom of expression is also a really big part of what I want in my own life. And this allows me to do it at the best level.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I know like there may be some entrepreneurs watching this and they feel sometimes maybe guilty about times when they're creative or times that they're putting themselves in an environment that's going to make them think of new ideas or stuff like that. And I know sometimes people can overdo it, but like you said, if you make it part of your lifestyle and if that's something that allows you to grow your business in moderation, of course, I think there should be times when we're just setting aside time to be creative and setting aside time to grow our business in that way. Maybe doesn't seem traditional. We're not always just in meetings or in emails or whatever it is, but spending time to be creative as well, because that has a huge impact on the business. I love that. So Cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's necessarily a work-life balance. I know when I used to work 9 to 5 when I was in corporate, like I didn't have like work time during my personal time and I didn't really mix the two. So I had a bit of a separation. But the beauty of entrepreneurship is being able to combine the two. And now work is part of my life.
Yeah.
And I enjoy what I do. And I think it sounds like you're doing the same. So
yeah. And you get to help people, right? Like in your business and my business, like my image and your image, obviously with your brand is so deeply associated when you're an entrepreneur with the things that you start that there's this internal motivation to be like, I'm going to put my best foot forward always. And I think there's like this natural path to improving yourself alongside your business, which is, it's like the philosophy of life in many ways.
Yeah. And business has forced me to do a lot of personal development because like you said, it's so deeply attached to my personal brand. And if my personal brand grows, if I grow as a person, then the business does as well. It's kind of cool how it's like, it's mirrored, you know? So yeah. No, it's great stuff. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're like, okay, I want to grow my business like you did, what are some tips that you would give to that person to maybe take that next step in growth?
Yeah. So beyond the consumer, like finding your consumer, which is really important. I think one thing that changed our business completely was building strategies on a page. And when you're an entrepreneur, you think everything is important. And you probably dealt with it before also, right? Like every single thing is important. You're getting emails left and right with different opportunities. And if you stick to a strategy that prioritizes consumer, what your thesis and vision is, what your mission is, and drive everything towards that, then the impact is almost like a laser beam more so than the shock and blast where the effects are, more is diluted. Like you could do that when you're like a Nike, obviously. But even Nike, they were laser focused on the running group and then eventually became to all athletes. And they still stick with just athletes and then as their core. And then now the fashionistas and everyone else wear it as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. Finding that core audience that you speak to and you can address and then laser focus on that to grow your business. And then you can start spreading out a little bit and diversifying. No, I think that's great. Now, as far as, there's so many different trends in business. And how do you see all these new things coming in with like technology and artificial intelligence and all these things that are changing in business? How quick are you to adapt to those? Or do you just kind of stick to your traditional way of running business?
We try to adopt technology as much as possible. But with that being said, I do think technology could be a distraction because you don't know what the direction of like the world and the response to new technology is ever going to be. So you're taking that like big risk. I assume if you're a technology company or if you're like a budding entrepreneur, looking at, for example, AI and being like, hey, like if AI is going to be the next big thing, again, the fundamentals and foundations of business, at least to me, are always the same. Is there a need? And how are you fulfilling that need? How many people can you fulfill that need for? To me, like AI or any of these things still falls into that, like whatever it is, that is the foundation of business. So we do adopt it, but I will say like, I don't let it be a distraction because I see other companies that are trying to get their feet wet in entrepreneurship or like people who are trying to get their feet wet in entrepreneurship, getting so caught up in the nuances of the tech that they lose sight of what's more important.
Yeah, no, definitely. So are you saying that you're implementing AI in your company right now?
Some aspects of it.
Yeah. How have you used it in the business?
I mean, customer service takes a lot of workload off them. Social media ads, creating like creative is king. Creating 50 different pieces of copy takes a lot of brain power for our creative director. Being able to do that with AI takes, almost zero brain power, right? Once you get the brand identity already fixed. There's so many different ways that we implement it.
Yeah. Awesome. So have you leveraged a lot of social media to grow your business or has it just been organic growth? And like you said, I mean, you got published in some things, you went on some talk shows. Have you leveraged social media as well?
We have not as much as I think we should. And, very recently I got connected and became very close with the people over at Poppy, which is like this drink that they just advertised at the Super Bowl. And one thing they over-invested in is brand and brand through social media. And I think that's our next phase. Like when Joe Rogan talks about our product, for example, we see a massive pop, right? And that's top of funnel awareness. If we could replicate that just with the standard user, like getting that awareness out there and using a platform like social media, which has insane amounts of reach, then I think it's like the next frontier. I see companies on TikTok, like solo founders doing $1 million a month, like these days. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is definitely powerful, and learning how to leverage that for your business, I think, is a great ability to have. So, how big is your company, like employee wise?
Like they're not including the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, including the warehouse, we're like 30 people.
30 people.
And in and out of the warehouse, we have like maybe 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many years old is it?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that, sometimes people overemphasize the need to hire people. When did you first know that you needed to hire more staff?
Man, it's hard because there's this quote, which is make yourself useless. And so you keep hiring people to make yourself useless.
Just delegate.
Yeah, it's through delegation, right?
Yeah.
I just don't know how true that is. As the company grows, there's more responsibilities, and there's, whether it's even building morale for your team, leading the vision, there's always a role, I think, that needs to be filled if you're a founder. And I think the biggest level of scale that we faced was when we reached a level of brand awareness and knew that with amplified sales and amplified marketing, which are our 2 biggest growing teams, amplified sales and amplified marketing, we could drive more conversion and we could drive more sales. And it's kind of getting an understanding of, okay, what's the ROI on headcount? And that's the way we've been moving up. I think a lot of tech companies hire just to hire. And it ultimately results in, them running out of funding and failing. And we try not to follow that as much as possible, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. So you're saying that you're basically looking at your revenue and you're seeing how much revenue you make per employee? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Headcount to revenue.
Yeah. Is there like a certain number that you target?
KPI. So not like, we don't burn a lot of money, but we're a growth company at this phase. Transparently, like going, trying to get to an acquisition phase or getting to a public phase, whatever it happens to be, and in like the next few years. And given that trajectory, they need to fit into an EBITDA burn that we feel is acceptable within like a 2-year goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely the next phase for you guys. Like you said, either acquisition or going public. So congrats on that. That's exciting stuff. And
not gonna lie.
Yeah. So cool, man. Now, as you were growing your company, how much would you say was like you and the co-founder just deciding things and figuring things out? And how much of it was you hiring external consultants to come in and help advise you on how to run the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if we didn't raise money. We bootstrapped the business for a long time. We actually didn't raise our first big round of capital until last year. And before that point, bootlegging was great because we were able to obviously learn all the nuances of a business and keep a lot of our equity. And we own the majority of the business still between Ryan and I. But we could have learned faster. And we could have made more mistakes earlier to have faster learnings if we raised money and if we brought outside consultants in. So I know it's not really maybe the precise answer you're looking for, but there's specifics. Like if you don't know anything about marketing, and a lot of founders fall into this mistake where they think they know so much about marketing, there is a strategy to finding consumer insights, laying strategy out, targeting ROI in the right way that I think a high-level consultant there could really, really help accelerate whoever's business is. And that's just talking from my own personal pain points.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. It's like, hey, we could have grown this company faster. We could have been much bigger now if we just hired consultants earlier on. And it's kind of like a consensus that I'm seeing in the business community where people know they should have done this earlier, but it's kind of like you don't know until you know.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, exactly. In hindsight, it's like, dang, we probably should have done this, But no, that's cool. It's definitely a good strategy for many people to grow their business faster and to make those mistakes earlier on, so that way they're smaller, right? And then they learn from those mistakes and continue growing faster. So that's definitely a big win for entrepreneurs. And if they don't know maybe where to find these consultants, how did you source these people that you're maybe learning from now? Is it just like your circle, or you paid to have access to them, or how did you do it?
So, I mean, I am part of entrepreneur groups, but I'll just use a recent example because we do get connected from investors and networking events and like being part of different communities and things like that. But our latest VP of commercial hire was director of brand strategy at Talking Rain, which does $1 billion a year. They're a massive company. They do sparkling ice. Because of her, I was able to connect with the CEO of Poppy, who has provided a lot of mentorship to me. Because of her, we've been able to connect with like different agencies that do consumer insights because of what she brought from her previous position. And there's a value that's kind of intangible that a good hire like that will bring to the table, and that pre-existing knowledge. And it's up to the entrepreneur to determine that ROI, not from just like, okay, I'm paying this person X amount. Are they going to generate this amount? Versus I'm paying this person X amount, but what is the wealth of knowledge, structure, and like leveling up that she'll do for the rest of the company with what she brings in?
Yeah.
And so it's a mentors, advisors, networking, all those things are important. But I do think if you have a great product also and a great vision, like those people will naturally be attracted to you like moths to a flame.
Yeah, definitely. I see that all the time. When you have something and you're doing something, more importantly, ideas can be worthless if you're not doing anything. But if you're actually taking action, you have that momentum. It's interesting. Like the right people will just come your way.
Yeah.
They're just like attracted to you because they're like, oh wow, they're like, this guy's serious. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing, and they'll want to help you. It's not like at least in my experience, it hasn't been like me begging people to help me. It's like they just like naturally, they're like, oh yeah, like I want to be a part of this. I like what you're doing. I like your vision, whatever it is. So I'm sure you experience.
Well, they know you provide value.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And once you do, it's getting to that position of providing value. So yeah, very, very, very important on that entrepreneurial journey. I've been working with different consultants and coaches and mentors for years and years. And I think, like we talked about earlier, it is a mindset thing, but also a business aspect of it as well with the coaching and consulting. So anyways, I want to do a bit of like a gear shift and talk about growing a company that is ready to exit. Now, I don't know if you're necessarily planning to exit anytime soon, but have you done anything in your business that prepared you for that exit?
Obviously, capitalizing on growth is a big thing. And understanding like how much capital you need to raise for burn. There's some things that from a strategic perspective that you forego if you don't need to be a profitable business. You know that X investor or X P firm or X conglomerate is looking for some specific thing, whether quantitative or qualitative. So our KPIs obviously shift towards those quantitative and qualitative goals, which I would say is, I would say that about anything though, whether it's an exit or not. It's like if your goal is profitability and creating a cash cow, you set your KPIs and OKRs to be aligned to that at the end of the day. So that's like the biggest shift.
Okay. And how did you find out those things that they're tracking?
We got an investment from that big conglomerate,
Yeah. And so they told you basically the things that you should work on?
Reading between the lines to a certain degree, going back to our board, they're, because we have part of their team on our board, obviously, that's providing us guidance and kind of shifting, molding, communicating. I think communication at that point is one of the most important things. If you know that you're already in bed with someone, how do you maintain that communication in a way that both sides can reach those same goals, which is also the benefit of structuring strategies on a page, laying out KPIs, having OKRs, and why Google and Microsoft, all these massive companies implement those things as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's a solid approach for sure. And so if somebody's growing their business, but maybe they don't quite have that advice or that counsel from these conglomerates or a board, what can they do that's actionable from day one to start working towards that goal?
Towards an exit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know that you're going towards an exit, and you haven't started your company yet, and this is just a hypothetical situation of if I were to start a company that we're going to go into an exit.
Yeah.
Identifying a need case, what's popular and hot right now, assessing the market and what the top line revenue goals are and the exit multiples are, and then building a thesis that you could take to a VC or whoever, angel investors, to raise enough capital to build a use case for reaching a revenue goal at a certain pace that you could go back and flip to a PE or some company. And I have friends that do that all day. They find needs in the market and they know that if they could grow the company quickly and develop a minimum viable product, an MVP, then they could take that thesis that they have and give it to someone else. Like our friend Scott Cohen, for example, he started Smile Direct Club, or not Smile Direct Club, the one that didn't fail, Byte. He started Byte, and that's exactly what he did. He started it, took it to a PE firm. The PE firm put in the infrastructure, and then they scaled it and it sold for $3 billion or something crazy like that.
Wow.
But he built that initial thesis, knowing that was an industry where Invisalign's patent was running out, and he could take it off.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Some people start businesses because they just want it to be their baby for the rest of their life. And then some people are like your friends and they're like, this is a need, this is the solution, and I'm just trying to flip it.
Two totally different ways of thought though, And not that either one's right or wrong.
Yeah,
but
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a place for both.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So as an entrepreneur, how do you continue staying sharp and developing yourself? What do you do to continue developing your mindset?
Man, that's a good question because I think a lot of entrepreneurs actually forget about that, right? They stop taking care of their bodies. I try to eat well. I exercise every single day. I'm training for an ultra marathon right now.
Wow.
Fitness is still a really big part of my life. And I don't forego that. I sleep at least 6 to 8 hours a night, usually more on the 6 side than the 8 side. But I prioritize that mental space that I need to be able to perform at my best. And that means not losing my temper, and if certain things in balance is not in flux, then your mind's not thinking in the right way, you're not going to be a good leader. So that's one really important thing.
Yeah.
2 is, again, not everything is important. Don't prioritize everything.
Yeah.
Take a step back, figure out your strategy, align on what is most important, if it's an exit or building a cash cow or whatever it is in that moment, and just remove yourself from all the noise and place yourself in that position where you can focus on what's most important. And that'll usually free up a lot more space. Also, running a business like you do and I do, it becomes part of your lifestyle. So if business is part of your lifestyle, what is the business that you want to cultivate for not just you, but your employees, for the people around you? And I think that balance is going to seep into everyone's life and everyone's going to work that much more efficiently and better.
Yeah. And just to touch on that a little bit, you're basically talking about company culture. So what are things that you've done in your company to cultivate the culture that you have today?
So one key thing that I know our company does that a lot of people like is there's a concept called misogi, which is one day out of the year or one event out of the year, you do something so incredibly hard that it impacts the other 365 days of your life. for that year. Last year for me, it was David Goggins 4x4x48. So running 48 miles in 2 days. And that was really freaking hard,
Yeah, sounds like it.
It impacted me for the rest of my year. And the company funds 100%, depending on what it is. It can't be like, I'm going to go skydiving from space. But it's, the company funds 100% of that. We give you that time off and you're allowed to do that thing that you feel will profoundly impact you. And it could be a creative endeavor. So our COO locking himself in a room and building an EP because he loves music and he's always wanted to do that, but he feels like he couldn't find the time. But like forcing himself to do that situation, or operations manager running rim to rim on the Grand Canyon, which is a pretty far run.
Yeah.
Like everyone comes up with something that they know, usually fitness oriented, doesn't need to be, but comes up with something that impacts them. And now they have something to tell. And now it's that story they have to tell for that year is also associated with our company. It all ties into itself.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. So that's just like a specific day per year. They get to choose whatever.
Choose whenever.
Yeah. Okay.
And also everyone roots them on, right? Like all 30 employees are just like, dude, that's so freaking cool that you did that thing. And it's like this awesome camaraderie that develops.
Awesome. I love that. And so what's like the craziest one you've seen so far?
I mean, I usually do the craziest ones. Like, like this year, the ultra marathon's a big one. Like I'm going to do 1,000 pull-ups in one day. I'm going to do 2 this year. It's the 1,000 pull-ups in one day and then
Goodness.
The ultra marathon. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how far I go.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's really cool. So that definitely cultivates some sort of culture. Are there any other things that you do like on a daily basis? Maybe it's like a group call in the morning or like sharing wins or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So every Monday, each department, so we're 100% remote, except for warehouse, but we're 100% remote and we try to meet up every quarter, at least at a department level or a leadership level, but
in person?
In person.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
At an event or whatever it is, usually in Vegas, but we were in Seattle actually last week for a leadership meeting.
Okay.
But
you just choose a random city?
Random city. Like last year we were in Chicago, or like last year, Q4 we were in Chicago, or Q3 we were in Chicago before it got cold.
Yeah.
But every Monday, all of us share how we feel starting off that week, what our priorities are so that, people don't get distracted. You can see that that's like a big theme to our business as a whole. Focus.
Yeah, stay focused.
And if someone's feeling like a little lower energy than the other people, then we'll try to help each other to kind of assess our priorities. And that's just something we do at a department level every Monday. And it's just on Slack. People just message like in the group threads.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, I could definitely see how that's beneficial. And it helps people feel like they're heard and they're a part of something. And definitely, yeah, that's cool. So do you have any sort of like formal leadership development programs within your company?
We do. We have a PIP, personal incentive plan. I don't even know what it stands for. We just call it PIP. But it's basically like this grid that we have on how people are performing with manager reviews. And if they're performing at the top right of the grid as a 9 versus a 1 on the quadrant, we know that they're over exceeding what their capacity is. And, you give them a raise or a bonus, and it gives us a pretty like concrete way to like promote people or give them bonuses. And we have a bonus structure across the board, but give them bonuses and things like that. Outside of that, like there's just general like personal development plan. There's personal incentive plans and personal development plans. So personal development plans is, and we took this from Talking Rain, but it's your own personal goals, your own company goals, and what you would want to see within like a 5 to 10 year span for yourself and your career path. So for our brand manager right now, she wants to move more into the direction of a creative director. So we could look at holistically what she's doing and how brand management can more fit into a creative director role and become like she could drive that role in the company, more importantly.
Yeah.
And developing that, providing her the resources to do that. So
And when you're doing something like that, is it you like finding education for her to learn, or is it you giving her opportunities that are going to cause her to grow?
Us providing kind of both. So for example, like yesterday morning, I think she had like a 1 hour call with the chief marketing officer of Poppy.
Mm.
You know, but a few months ago, she connected with, I'm trying to think of other people she's connected with at like the GM of Heinz. Like we have these advisors and people that obviously we meet through networking. And, you know, we ask for favors at the end of the day to help grow people in the business.
Yeah.
And then on top of that too, you know, like one of our people goals in our pillars is 90% retention. And that means not just good hiring, but making sure those good hires want to stay with the business, because one, the financial incentive is only a small part of it, right? Like you get a job that pays a lot of money anywhere in the right circumstances. But feeling existentially satisfied is a whole nother thing if someone's going to be spending 10 to 12 hours a day working at Neurogum.
Yeah, definitely. You want them to feel like, you know, they're part of something.
Yeah, and they're growing and like growing with us. So
yeah. No, I totally get that. I love that. I think that's great. And as far as like company values, did you come up with those on your own? Did you get inspiration from somewhere? Like, how did those come about?
Yeah, we have 6 company values. I can't name them, so don't ask me. But that
was my next question.
But you know, we take them from like companies we like, and then we review them on an annual basis. So
they change every year,
but not too much. You know, like they're usually around like self-starter is one of them. You know, like humility is another one. Servant mindset. So no one's above anyone else. But a new one we added most recently in our leadership meeting is like from the Misogi, it's ikigai. So like what is your purpose? Like what is your purpose? And giving everyone and having everyone in the company find their sense of purpose within what they do.
Mm.
And so if they feel like they're not providing purpose, then they could, you know, bring it up to the leadership committee, the board, whoever it is, like from leadership committee to the board, from employee level to the leadership committee, so on and so forth. Which allows everyone to be able to, like, again, maintain that, feel like they're relevant to the company and feel like they're existentially growing within the organization and in life.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cool. Now, when you were first starting out and like earlier on, not now, maybe it's different now, but earlier on, how did you go about the hiring process? Did you just reach out to friends and people you know, or did you like post job ads? How did you hire people to trust them with your company? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that.
Man, hiring, I think, is the hardest thing, the hardest thing in business, because a wrong hire could ruin your business.
Yeah.
Like literally, they could sue you, they could do all this stuff. Like it's crazy and make your life miserable. There's a book called Who, which was recommended to me by one of the co-founders of RX Bar. And that book allows you to develop a scorecard based on the cultural values, the needs of the cultural needs of the company, the financial needs of the company, and the business goals of the company to bring someone on board. And it provides this like really nice step-by-step way on how an interview structure should be so that you could identify whether this person fits or not into the use cases and needs of the company in that moment. Alongside that, you know, as a consultant, we hired, who's now our advisor, but the GM of Heinz. And she's just been like an absolute, Julie Adams, she's been an absolute rock star helping us out with like how she did interview processes when she was like, she's at Heinz, or she was VP of marketing at Mush and RX Bar before that, which is how we connected with her. And identifying kind of the right people from, again, like a people fit, an operations fit, and a business fit, a brand fit. So like those 3 pillars, which also are our corporate pillars as well.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I love that. Yeah, this has been very informative. And I think that people are going to get a lot of value out of something like this. Now, have you done any sort of integration with products that your customers might be buying when they're buying your product? So maybe they're buying mints, but they also want to buy, you know, something else. Any sort of horizontal integration there?
Like with another brand?
Yeah, with another brand, or maybe they're getting the same customers that you're already acquiring to buy your product. maybe they're also buying something else every time they buy your product.
Yeah.
Have you done any sort of integration in that sense?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of data that you could pull from the retail side. And transparently, retail for us is a little bit harder because we're fighting against the big dogs, So placement for us is incredibly expensive if you're trying to be next to the Wrigley's of the world.
Yeah.
But one of the main advantages we have as a smaller company is that we have the flexibility to partner with adjacent companies that people may or may not buy and take up bigger brand blocks.
Yeah.
So one example, outside of Patty and these partnerships that we do is Pluto Pillow. We just launched a sleep product. And one of the biggest pillow companies in the United States, we put our sleep product in every single one of their packs. And all of our people who buy sleep gets a massive discount on Pluto Pillow products.
Yeah.
So things like that, we try to activate.
Tell me more about Pluto Pillow. What is it?
Oh, so Pluto Pillow is a customized pillow that you put in all your specs as like how you sleep.
Yeah.
And they have like 50 different types of pillows and they'll choose the right one for you so you can sleep your best. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So every time they buy that pillow, they're getting some of your product as well?
Yeah, inside all their shipments. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then there's a few other ones that are retail specific that are in the works. So I can't really bring them up, but it's with some pretty cool big names.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a great idea for people who have a product like this or a service where maybe every time somebody's buying this, they're also buying that. And just like looking into those partnerships and building something like that out, definitely a lot of value there. So
our VP of sales actually has this saying where all ships rise. So when you're fighting against the big dogs, like all these guys are trying to take you down. To win that brand block and that awareness, even if it's a competitor or an adjacent company, building the awareness for nootropics, building the awareness for whatever our category of like cognitive health products, working with those people, all ships rise if you guys are both able to win. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like another ethos that we go by.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, man, for joining us here today. This has been super, super insightful. I think people are going to learn a lot of great information here. So if they want to connect with you, are you on Instagram, website? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah. You guys can find us on neurogum.com. That's neurogum.com. And our Instagram is @neurogum, as well as our TikTok @neurogum. Everything. Easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Very, very thankful for you making it out here. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is a lot of insightful information for people who maybe want to grow their business to that next level. And learning from him has been very, very insightful for me. And I'm sure it has been for you guys as well. Thank you for joining us. This is Better Business with Austin Zellin, and we'll see you on the next episode.